Welcome back to Backroom Convo. I'm your host at the most Lesego M report. Hey, shoot your shot. Maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, if you are a fan of Hart, stay tuned because you might like what we are cooking on today's episode. We are talking about the episode that was supposed to be released today, which is the episode where we had Yoel Kenan, who is the CEO of Africori, South Africa. So I think the episode, I was supposed to address this last week, but we did. I'm so sorry for that. We did release an episode, but the sound quality wasn't that good, so we decided not to publish it. So I guess today's episode is to explain why we didn't have a guest for another. This is the second Monday since the last guest, so this is the second Monday, and this was supposed to be another Monday where we had Yoel Kenan, who is a guest as well, but we couldn't release it. And I think I did speak about the story, so you saw we had an amazing episode with Yoel Kenan, but I think the only problem is that when the interview started, I was a bit nervous, and we recorded, and I think given the last interview and the last interaction that I had with a guest, which the guest was Mpho Makwana. He's a very huge figure, a thought leader in so many aspects. I think we like me and a lot of people that know him, not even from a personal level, but we do know him because I think I did mention we went to the same church, and I didn't use that as a selling point when I was pitching him to come to the show. I didn't use that, so I think when he agreed to come, we had an interview, and that, I think I did explain the story as to what happened and why that episode wasn't released on that day, right? So I think at the time I felt like I even lost motivation to even record podcast episodes with guests. I'm like, maybe we should maybe I should think about recording episodes alone, no guests, and just have fun, So I think when Yoel Kenan came through, we had prepared, we had everything we always do, preparation, but I felt because we had so many things we are passionate about, we had a lot to talk about, and I say this because some of the questions that we actually drafted and we wanted to ask Yoel, I ended up not even asking the questions. Because I had questions that myself, I had I wanted to know. It wasn't because I thought Ubanbani or I was like, well, I just want to know this part of the business. We had guests in the podcast earlier on, guests such as, famous no era. I'm trying to bridge that gap to say, what are some of the things that those guys don't know? And Yoel, not Yoel. Why do I keep on saying Yoel? Yoel has information or access to, it's always been about bridging that gap. So I ended up asking some of those questions, and I'm like, I see A, B, and C. What's your take on this, and how do we make sure that we bridge the gap between A and B? And we spoke about a lot to say, as much as I'm doing this and I'm a part of the ecosystem and the music, the culture, and how are we using Amapiano as the key or as the center point of the ecosystem to say this is the foundation Amapiano. We are going to use this to make sure that people in fashion eat, people in what they also eat, people in fashion, people in in food, African food, in the sneaker business, the entire culture as a whole, to say how do we make sure everyone eats from just that one thing, you know. And if that you were to, and I did speak to him about this as well, Uguti, like if the states can do it, and I said I really liked what Tyler the Creator had said, Uguti, you know, everything is reference, and if we were to use the United States and the hip-hop culture and how it has influenced it has influenced a lot of the young minds, like I wanna wear Gucci, and some of the piano artists are also inspired by the guys of hip hop, you know. So it's so deep that, you know, like it's subconscious for some of like them. It's like they didn't realize they were actually promoting the fashion industry by wearing A, B, and C, and like, you know, there's just a few artists where you're like, oh, like this one is like a bit conscious as to like his brand or the brand or her brand, you know. So I'm like, oh, okay, like how do we make sure Pharrell Williams is working with you know, Louis Vuitton, you know, like to do the male collection or the female collection. And essentially this only started with music, and now he's working with, I think, Academy as well. Academy, which is like also a platform where you can learn independently how to, you know, produce, to be a business person within the music industry. And I'm like, but everything with Pharrell started with music. Everything with Hov, Jay-Z, it started with music, and it just poured on into everything else. The gig, the Rock Nation, him being a boss, the, you know, endorsements, the Puma endorsements, and, you know, some of the partnerships, the heavy partnerships that Jay-Z has, it was because of the music. It had to be the music first, right? So I'm like, if the music is there, the sound is there, how do we then infuse the element of fashion, the element of, you know, like food, like the culture, the lingo, you know? So how do we infuse that within the culture of like Amapiano, African music as a whole, you know? So I think one thing we need to do, it's, as much as we are pushing to say like this is Amapiano and we are very proud of Amapiano, we need to make sure with, oh, like Amapiano, if I'm dressed in my Xhosa, because, you know, like the swag goes well, the video, the aesthetics, it's Xhosa, you know, the graphics are done by, you know, director X or whoever, like the biggest director is in Mzansi when it comes to like music videos. You know, like it can be offensive, you know, it can be offensive, the guy who does music videos as well. He does skits as well, I think. You know, it can be him, like, but we preach the same thing to the people that are listening, to the people that are watching, and the people that are like learning our culture, you know, from dance. You know, I think even back in the day, for those of you who are younger, who are older, I mean to say, like you'd remember, Guti, hip hop was so big back then that there was even a culture where like hip hop, there was dances where, you know, like J Squad, it was a big thing in SA. Like a lot of people were crampers, and like we indulged in the culture, my sneaker, the Air Forces, you know. It's not our thing, but we really liked it, and how it was presented to us, it was beautiful, and it resonated with us, you know. So I'm like, I think that's what we also need to do, you know, like we need to engineer or to model something that is similar to what the United States has. I don't know if Europe has it, but what the United States has, then you'd see like it starts to feed into like the economy, you know, tourism as well. The economy in a way of tourism, you know, Xhosa, they're being supported. You'd find, and you know, I think again to discuss this, I think I had a conversation with someone, and we were discussing yesterday. It was like a 4-hour conversation on the phone. We were talking about the circulation of money, and I was watching a video of someone who was saying that, I don't know how true that is, and I don't have the reference video of that guy, but I'll just keep on watching, and maybe I'll just reference him next time and give him credit for his work. So he was saying that money in the Indian community circulates about 83 times before it goes outside the Indian community. And within black people, or like the black race, or whatever you may call it, the people of color, it only lasts something like 6 hours, if I'm not mistaken. I think some of you might know the video of that guy who was talking about that. I was like, well, some of these things are some of these things that are happening, we can like remedy them by just implementing such, like dance, sneaker culture, the fashion, and like we can feed into our economy. We can like make sure that it circulates more than 6 hours. It circulates more than 6 hours, as opposed to like the Indian community, whereas in the Indian community being 83 times rather, so I'm like, those type of things we can like, maybe I get there's people who are like saying, yeah, like fuck the economy, I'm all about me and my bag. But I'm like, well, we get that, but like you winning is another child winning, and if SARS is you taking a child to school with those, as much as there's like those things, but in hindsight there's like kids that are learning, because of those taxes. There's people that are getting paid because of those taxes. Like let's not like look at the smaller things and just get misdirected of what the bigger picture is. So that's my perspective when it came to that. I'm like, this was a very mindful conversation. It's just a pity that it wasn't live, and the recording, we no longer have it. I think a lot of people who are within the space of fashion, the space of dance, the space of music would have really taken a lot from it, and I feel like, given the connection, or given the relationship that we established with him, I don't know if I can say relationship, but now because we are communicating with him, it's now easier for us to say like, yeah, we did this episode with you, how about now we do introduce visuals, and so we can reach like more and more audience, to also like offer the information, like there's a misinformation, there's a gap between the people who have access to the information. And sometimes an artist can be good in music, but they don't know how to really market themselves, or they don't have exposure to the right information as far as like marketing. But the music is there, the music is amazing. So I'm like, maybe that episode would have reached someone in Bumbulu, someone in Bombelas, someone in Limpopo, like in outside the rural areas. It could have reached them, but it is what it is though. Like I think maybe whenever we start going where we start introducing visuals, I think he's one of the people I feel like we need to reintroduce on the podcast, given that with audio, not a lot of people listen to audio, but you stand a greater chance to have like a huge conversion when it comes to visuals, because like a lot of people, like I think YouTube is like the second search engine, the biggest search engine, if I'm not mistaken, after Google. So if people are always there, or people are always searching there, like the likelihood of you being recognized or being seen or like being exposed to like a huge number of people who are interested in what you're talking about is very high, So I think if we were to do that, man, he has to come back to the podcast, man. And I so wish that maybe he's listening to this episode thinking that it's his episode that came out, but it didn't. We apologize to you, Yoel Kenan, and like, if you're available in future, whenever we start introducing the visuals to the podcast, we'd really love to have you as a guest, the first guest of the video interviews, man. So yeah, man, I think on other news, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. The apology, I'm done with that. And I think on other news, man, over the weekend I saw who? What's the name? I saw Kevin Hart and Cenet. I think Kevin visited Cenet on his live stream on Twitch, and I think that was interesting, and it gave me insight or a different perspective when it came to live streaming. And I'm like, I've watched an episode of an interview. I think it's a podcast, or I don't know. It was an interview, one of the Hollywood platforms, and Cenet was there, and he really seemed like a down to earth guy. Doesn't have a lot of things. He loves his space, but I'm like, whenever he's in the live stream, you get a different character. I'm like, there's high energy, there's loud. He's loud. I'm like, well, what I mean by that is that when Kendrick goes off stage, or your favorite artists, when they're on stage and they're off stage, if you've had the privilege of seeing them, you'd realize that some of them are like two different people on and off stage. Beyonce, I think, is one of them. He's spoken about like his alter ego, which is Sasha Fierce. So I felt like even with like live streaming, it also has that, because Kai off stream is a different person than the person that you meet off the stream. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. I was like, wow, this is like so cool. And given that also Kevin Hart, I was like, Kevin Hart is like, him off and on stage. Which, okay, like, this is like the energy that you get from Kevin Hart when he's on stage or he's on camera. But he's not this person when he is in radio, when he is in an interview. You kind of like get a different perspective of who this person is, and the art element and ubiquity. Sometimes it's just energy. Because nobody really wants to watch a live stream that's boring, low energy, there's no vibes, you know what I mean? So you have to always keep people entertained. So I think that's my perspective when it came to that. And I didn't watch it, but the clips that I saw, I think Kevin must have really enjoyed himself. He was drunk as well. I'm like, oh, this maybe we must watch. Like, do let me know what you think on the comment section. If you did watch the live stream between Kevin Hart and Cenet, please share your experience on the comment section. I'm your host with the most, Lesego Report, aka Future Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Let's meet tomorrow again on another exciting episode of Backroom Convos with Lesego M. I love you all. Cheers.